So, what is going on? We've got a lot to cover. Where did we leave off? You were talking about the market and saying we need to pick up where we left off and talking about the crypto market. A lot has happened last week. The Fed's happened, some Binance stuff has happened. Um we got Coinbase to talk about, but in your estimate, where did we leave off talking about the market last time?
So last episode we talked about a lot of different things, and then we even talked about one of the more interesting things, which maybe isn't so crypto related, and we need to stay on crypto, was just looking at people's kind of spending habits. Because I shared that stat, I believe it was from Bloomberg, that just shared that there was a lot of people, or
Mm,
there's a growing amount of people in the United States that make 100K plus, but are living
okay,
paycheck
yeah.
to paycheck. So that's what we
Yeah.
kind of talked about, and then we were talking about investment strategy, and then we kind of got into like needs and wants, and we almost got onto budgeting, but let's stay away from that. But one of the things I think I want to talk about right now
Yes.
is your strategy for where we are today. Even though it's only been a week, are you
Yeah.
still in a similar place with TradFi and crypto? Because since we know that, the Fed has raised 0.25 points, and we said
Yeah.
last time if it raised 0.25 points, Bitcoin
Yes.
would go to 25, but then eventually this can probably drop as low to 15 and then really start to creep up as we get into the summer and as we honestly get closer to 2024 and the Bitcoin
Yeah.
halving and just I think
Yeah.
better sentiment because right now globally there's a feeling that there's a recession, if you will.
Well, I don't know. So, yes, and they only raised it a quarter point. There's all sorts of indicators. So, I wanna be careful we don't creep into just general financial freedom stuff here. So, let's just keep the Fed talk on its effect on crypto. And we did say this was gonna go to 25. And then Janet Yellen comes along. I don't know if you all saw this, the US Secretary of the Treasury. She comes along and says, "Listen, you don't have a recession if you have the lowest job numbers in 53 years." Now, we know that that is 1 month worth of data. We know that there's still layoffs coming, but Ken Cato, where's Jay? This afternoon, Jay is probably absolutely slammed. His work has been keeping him totally slammed, and it's just been hard to sync up. So everyone reach out to Jay, tell him how much you love him and miss him, and encourage him, just with his Web2 job has just been nutso. So, we're carrying the torch, and we're carrying the torch for Jay today. But so back to this. So Janet Yellen says you don't have, a recession if you have these sorts of job numbers. Meanwhile, the Fed says, listen, if these are the job numbers, then the market, because the Fed's job's to fight inflation, air quotes for those listening later. So they say, well, if you have good job numbers, then the market can withstand market rate raises. So how does this affect Bitcoin? Well, my market sentiment is falls in line with Janet Yellen's. I'm looking and going, wow, a week ago I would have said, hey, we're really watching for an even softer bottom. But I was talking to Marissa this morning going, is the market got us are we at a soft bottom now? And I'm still dollar cost averaging my crypto, but Bitcoin looks great. What is it at today? It's a 23-1, right?
It's a yeah, my the app I use is 23 to 25, but we'll
Yeah.
just call it, 23 and a quarter, which is really quite I think it's quite good. And the thing, and we spoke about this last episode too, so we're building on that, which is that when I see these job numbers, I just don't care. I just don't care about them. And I know that we've forever used employment as like, well, if the employment's low, then we must be doing something great. And if we're adding jobs, I just don't even think we're adding great jobs, like good
What?
jobs. Like they're not like 100K plus jobs with full benefits. Like just because you're adding jobs, I think there could be a lot of gig work. I just think that a lot of people, and I said this in the last episode, I just think Main Street is hurting a lot more than people think.
I think
And
Main Street's hurting a lot less. And mind you,
really,
so my perspective on this is I'm a business owner and I do B2B sales, right? And I hope to bridge that with our product, like the Chat GPT course we're doing and the crypto investing course and all this sort of stuff we're rolling out. But like I'm talking to other business owners, and the thing I like about this is I get a pulse not only on how other business owners are feeling, but how they're feeling about their B2C clients. And they're kind of going, is it supposed to get worse? Now, what we did find was this. I'm in Central Florida for those watching. Central Florida theoretically has a lower response, a reaction to market fluctuation. So, for rough numbers, if the market fluctuates crazy in a metropolitan area by, I'm just going to make this up, 10%, in Central Florida, even though we have Orlando and Tampa here, we let's say we'll only be affected by 6 or 7%. So I could have a skewed view, and a lot of my clients who are throughout Central Florida have a skewed view, but I have clients in Denver, I have clients all over. And the general sentiment is we're only afraid because the headlines are telling us to be afraid. But we're going out here. What's the price of eggs is the big conversation here in the US. And it's like, well, they're up, but like gas has gone as low again to around the $3 mark. Now it's back up to 3.50. It's fluctuating, but like I report on my Monday morning show, I report on the markets TradFi and DeFi every single week. And in the last 4 or 5 weeks that I've been reporting, I've got my back numbers. It's been like break even across the board, except for Bitcoin's pop and Ethereum's bump and crypto bump. It's been relatively flat. So I look for trends, and the trend is like, I mean, the Fed might come in next time with a half point bump. That would then change my sentiment. Not
Mm.
because there is a real recession going on, but because we'll create a self-fulfilling prophecy. And then I think we'll see that in crypto. But have you noticed the NFT world has been bumping? NFT volumes are high. In fact, if you look right now at the Bitcoin volume, over 24 hours, the Bitcoin volume's up 17% in the green. Like, so in terms of the balance books, like people are buying optimistically, one could think Bitcoin. Now, maybe they're just getting, maybe, I don't know. What's the public's view? We got a lot of good viewers on. You tell us, maybe people are getting suckered to the bull trap, but I don't know. What do you think? I mean, do you think this is a total bull trap?
I don't know about bull trap. I mean, I think as long as you're, as you always say, time in the market over timing the market. I mean,
Yeah,
like I said, I think it's gonna go down to 15 over the spring. I guess I just think, like, Central Florida is probably not giving you the best indicator of what's going on globally.
sure.
Currencies are dying. Food, like, the food basket for many people is multiplied. Like, it's gone up, like, orders of magnitude, like 30 or 40% for people. And I think if you're also talking to small business owners, these might be people that are a little bit more savvy and also have a little bit more control of how much they can earn. Whereas if you just talk to an employee and they're capped at X and they normally spend 90% of X every month, and now their food is more expensive, that gets really tough. Then the conversation comes into, like, is it medicine? Is it transportation? Is it childcare? Is it other things? You know, we're probably gonna have to change the foods we eat. So I'm seeing more of a
Isn't
global
this always
recession.
the case though? Like,
It is, but not since, like, the pandemic changed a lot, you know? Like, seeing so many currencies in Latin America devalue in the way that they have in the last 24 months has been scary, you know? And
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 it's
so
more so than typical?
yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, if you look at, like, Latin America and you look at Venezuela, Venezuela's currency devalued, and that had to do because it was tied into the oil and what Chavez was doing at the time, right? Argentina's always had inflation issues since I think the late '90s and the 2001, but they had issues since then. But, like,
Mhm.
Mexico, Colombia, these are all places that are, like, seeing currency devaluation. Colombia, especially, obviously, you know that I'm here right now, and so it's very forefront, and I've just, like, you see a lot more, like, desperation. And I think in the United
Interesting.
States, I mean, eggs is a pretty staple thing, so when the price goes up 30 or 40%, you know, we talk about this all the time, 60% of people in the United States, it's a stat, 50 to 60% can't afford a $400 emergency. So when the food
That's
basket
true.
increases, I just think it's like it gets a lot tighter. And Ken Cato says, I'm just going to DCA until I see the bottom. There's still so much to come. Jarrett is all correct on this. Wow, Ken Cato. I didn't even pay him. I normally pay him. I say, Ken, I need you to come on. I'm going to feed you a line. I think it's just interesting because you have Janet Yellen and you have the Fed and you have other things that are telling us it's all okay, it's all okay, it's all okay. And then you have like Chamath Palihapitiya and you have other billionaire investors who are like, dude, stack cash right now. We don't know where we're going. We've never had this situation where we're like in a stagflation type moment. And so what I'm saying is the numbers that I hear from the authorities, and I'm using air quotes if you're listening to this on a podcast, don't align with what I think the actual reality it is. And it brings me back to I watched like 30 minutes of The Big Short last night. It
Yeah.
feels like The Big Short because in The Big Short, all those guys are like,
Really?
none of this makes sense. You know, how are the underlying mortgages being more delinquent, but the bond is increasing in value? That's how it feels. It feels like something isn't aligned, and when that happens, then it feels like it's a rigged deck. So
Well, I mean, I would agree, and for those picking up or jumping in, we're talking about the crypto markets, and I know it sounds like we're talking about all markets, but at this point, the coupling, I think Jarrett and I do agree that DeFi and TradFi are no longer decoupled. They might, in small movements, based on news events within their industries, crypto, DeFi industries, or whatever, they might adjust a little, but on trend, generally speaking, we believe they're pretty coupled. But I don't see for me, I think all the news makes you want to feel afraid. No one is putting confidence into the market, but I'm seeing trends like hearing Janet Yellen, like uh hearing the jobs numbers and thinking, okay, I mean, this is nothing like 2000. I'm telling you, in 2008, for those, Jerry, you may not know this. I managed a Starbucks in 2008. I was managing a Starbucks. It was the second time I had lost everything. And I was like, "Oh my gosh," because the people funding me, they lost out on real estate. I slept in my car for a while, finally got work. Through a series of events, I ended up managing a Starbucks. And at the worst of it, when it was getting bad, like even building up to getting bad, we would have hiring days. And on the hiring days, I had so many people applying that I had to do group interviews of 20 people or more. I'd have the line going out to the street. And this was a bad market, right? This was freaky. And you'd have someone with 2 PhDs sitting there trying to apply for a job to make coffee. And it was just very disorienting. And so when I look outside and I think, what's going on out here? Kids are still spending money on NFTs that are rallying like blue checks. I want to talk about Jack Butcher's project because I'm very interested in, and especially with the DMs you were having and what that could mean for crypto philanthropy with Turkey. That I want to hear about that in just a quick second. But like your experience in Latin America, I think about this every time when I was working in Haiti. Every time I would fly into Haiti and fly back, I would think people in America don't even know. People in America don't even know that the world is going to hell in a handbasket economically. But then a few weeks in America, and I was like, nah, just life is hell everywhere else. I mean, it's just we have managed to offshore a lot of our suffering for lack of a better word. But so I think a lot of things are pointing me to what I have my internal indicators that things are doing okay. Yes, it's bad and it might get a little worse, but people aren't lining up for 20, 40, 60 people at a time for a job at Starbucks.
and this
And
is what
just
I
what I'm
talked
seeing.
about in the last episode, though, that worries me. That and there was that article talking about how 2 million people, and this is once again, if you are listening around the world, we're sorry, this is gonna be a very US-centric conversation when we're talking about employment, but I think that may also potentially bring you context to wherever you are, like, to see that, the US has its own thing. Um, that article that was talking about the guy who did the study, and he was like, 2 million people have left the job market since the pandemic.
Mhm.
That is not good. I'm actually okay, I shouldn't say if it's good or bad because I think that that will always be left to be seen over the time,
Yeah.
but it's just kind of like, I think that there's not enough incentive even in pay, and I think that that just
And
has
this
to do
is what you're getting at. This is
with
what I
general
think
inflation. Yeah.
I'm wondering if well, and first and foremost, the job numbers coming back, show good signs, and when we look at the crypto market and crypto volumes, I see the amount of people that still have that are making discretionary decisions. I mean, buying an NFT and jumping in on fluffies. I jumped in on fluffies. Fluff everybody. Fluff you for not getting into fluffies. Super fun NFT. I really love the brand. For those who didn't see this, they rug pulled everybody, when they launched the NFT. Basically, they got everyone to do the pre-mint. We all were sitting on our pre-mint on the hour that this thing was supposed to update the metadata and you were supposed to get the reveal of your NFT. They did the meme of Leonardo DiCaprio saying, "Fuck you," and everyone freaked out, and it was I mean, all the NFTs were doing this, and it was like, this was an overt rug, and then 30 seconds later, updated, and you got the real NFT, and it got people talking. But here's my point: if people have enough discretionary income that they are still pulling this. This isn't the entire population, we know this, right? I mean, the crypto market's a different market, granted, but it is still one indicator that I think is very strong that this is play money. This is play money. It functionally does very little in these people's lives. It's complete speculation, and there's still enough people to buy into a project like Fluffy's and get involved that I have to agree to disagree that I think that the bottom will come, and I think that there's a further bottom to be had, of course, but I don't know if I any longer believe we're gonna see an 8,000 Bitcoin. I don't know if I any longer believe we're gonna see a 12,000 Bitcoin, maybe a 14 or $15,000 Bitcoin, but I just don't think it's going to be as deep and as exaggerated as of today. That's where I feel. Does that make sense?
That does make sense, but I think that out of the entire people that buy and sell and trade and are into crypto, a
Yeah,
small percentage of them, I'm gonna say 2 to 3 to 4% are, like, actively involved in NFTs,
sure.
and you're taking a small percent of another small percent
Yeah.
and making an argument for global economy. I think that that's flawed. Obviously, you know it's flawed on some level.
It's one indicator of
It's
many.
an interesting
Yeah,
indicator because what you're
yeah,
saying is, how can we be in a recession or have recession-ish vibes if there are people out there basically buying speculative NFTs, speculative digital assets, which are NFTs, okay?
yeah,
And I just think that that's like, okay, for example, the Fluffy collection. How
yeah,
many let's fire up OpenSea. Let me fire up OpenSea,
yeah, yeah.
and I wanna look super simply at the ooh, what's it called? Ooh, there's Fluffy
It's what the
polar
fluff
bears.
here. I got it right here.
You wanna pull it up?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, what the fluff. Boom. There we go.
What the Fluffies? Oh, here it is, What the Fluff.
Yeah.
Oh, wait,
And there's already plenty of fakes, right?
yeah, I already got in a fake. If you can drop me a link on
Yeah,
wherever, that'd be phenomenal, because what I wanna do is, I wanna look at I wanna look at the collection and dive a little bit deeper into it. And if you're on here and you're a Bitcoin maxi and you hate NFTs, I'm sorry, we're gonna do this a little bit because I think it will come back to the conversation of Bitcoin price.
yeah, yeah. Where
So,
is? Hang on.
because yeah, I'm on and I found one and this is totally not actual fluff.
Not the actual fluff.
No.
Uh, Hang on. I'll pull this up. But you're right. It's not the only indicator um, to what's going on. But the other indicators I look at, and I'm pulling this up, but the other indicators I look at are how many people are lining up for jobs that they were previously on TikTok complaining about. No one. No one is at Publix. No, and what you said about price is spot on. Like these jobs don't pay enough. Um, where is my fluff? Mm, mm,
But I guess
mm.
that's my point. That's worrying. I would rather have people no, I don't want people lining up outside looking for jobs. But that would be easier for me to understand and you to understand as a signal of a recession or a bad economic moment. Then there'd be so many places that have job openings that want to pay people and people are like, "Nah." Like this post-pandemic world where people are just like, "Nah, we're gonna do other things, like we're gonna go flip NFTs or we're gonna be full-time content creators." It's just a new world, and I don't think that the Fed has caught up with that world. And
Mm,
so when they talk about employment, I just think that I think that they're missing it. And I'm not even sure with this argument I'm building, I'm not even sure if they're missing it wrong. Maybe it actually is okay. Maybe the 2 million people that haven't come back into the workforce are actually okay and they're doing their own thing and making their way however they are, not in the quote formal employment sector. But
mhm,
either way, I just think the Fed is missing a large sector of what is actually happening in the US economy because I think
hmm,
that they're still trying to use old metrics, dare I say Web 2 metrics, to try to define a Web 3 world. Like the 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid that's in college. In fact, one of the kids who just came on More Than Blockchain, who I will be dropping a new episode soon, he's 19 and 20 years old, and you and I talked about him. He basically found some super rich investor, and he just does trades with this guy's money all off the books, and he makes a crap ton of money. Now the
mm,
government sees him potentially as either unemployed or he's not even taken into employment because you have to be looking for a job to be considered unemployed. You know what I mean? Like his whole generation isn't even factored in if a bunch of kids are doing that. So I'm just saying, I just think that like the
I
Fed
think
is,
what you're describing is
yeah,
the epitome of a healthy economy, because what you're describing is they have the luxury. I was at a restaurant the other day, and I was talking to this kid a little bit about crypto, and he said, I said, "I think I want." He knows I'm a goal coach too. He said, "I think I wanna
uh-huh.
do more with my life." And I was like, "Well, what do you wanna do with your life?" And he was talking about it, and then I said, "What's your motivation?" He said, "I don't know. I could get by here." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He said, "I could skate by." I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "For my career. Like, I could just work as a server, and I just don't care." And I'm like, this sentiment, I have interns from college who are like, I don't I'm thinking about getting work, but like you're saying, they have this lackadaisical attitude about the system and are like, not interested in the system because I mean, whatever. I'm trying to learn and see where I fit. And my question to them is, well, do you need this? No, I'm good. I don't need this to get by. To me, with the observation you're making, I make that observation, but the conclusion I'm hearing is they have an option. Growing up, I had no option but to start working at 14 and selling my art in the street if I was going to put clothes on my back. And I'm not getting that, at least in America or the West or North America or American Canada. I'm not getting that vibe from anybody that I have to do this to make ends meet. It's like, nah, I can have a job. I cannot have a job. Doesn't matter. Now, maybe this is also on the heels, and maybe we need to get back to crypto and not talk about this, but maybe this is also on the heels of this is a group of people that are graduating in a world where a government just prints off the money they.
Well, this gets back to crypto and it gets right back into Bitcoin and right back into
Yeah,
Bitcoin maxis that are just like divide the infinity amount of money of fiat currency by 21 million because
yeah,
that's how much Bitcoin's price is going to be.
mm,
And I think I think you're hitting on exactly what I'm saying, that like the Fed and overall job reports and the employment statistics, they're not taking into account what is actually happening in the economy. And throughout this entire conversation, I've actually talked myself out of maybe that's a bad thing as far as maybe the economy is worse. Maybe the economy is better because people are able to kind of like self sustain and literally pick themselves up by their bootstraps, which is actually impossible, and
yeah,
flip NFTs or do whatever they want to do. I mean, the
man,
entire what's it? My buddy's daughter, she's gonna be 6 in March. The only thing she wants to do is be a YouTube star. That is it. And
yeah,
I've sat with her parents, one of my best friends, my best friend, Jeff, and we talk about it and we talk about the pros and cons. We're like, okay, the pro is that if she starts now, by the time she's 12 or 15, because she's 6 almost, she could have a brand that totally sustains her, and then that's her life, and we don't ever have to worry about her economically, right?
yeah,
Her path won't be college. Her path will be self-learning,
mhm,
self-fulfillment, self kind of understanding in this more digitalized world that she's growing up in, that like we were only like kind of baptized in when we were already not, well, we weren't 6 years old at least.
yeah,
And I just think that like the Fed is so far away from that, you know?
yeah,
I don't think that they
yeah,
understand what's actually happening. And then when you think about Bitcoin and NFTs, you
yeah,
just like change everything, you know? And then Victor's hopping in saying, yo, what's up, Victor?
yeah.
And
He's a Cheeto
so,
millionaire, man, hands down.
oh, for sure. So, but looking at Bitcoin,
Yeah.
think that, well, one of the things I wanted to ask you was, where do you think Bitcoin is at the end of the year? Have you have any thoughts on that? Because people have come out and kind of given their thoughts as we run up probably to 2024, the halving, and potentially quantitative easing, i.e., printing of money, and the US election, which always influences the economy, at least the US economy, which vis a vis will influence the global economy.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts? Because like right now we're at 23, and I guess the question is that I have is 23 the bargain, or is 23, you know, still expensive because we are gonna go down, like you said, to 14, 15, even just for a week?
Not financial advice. My thinking is this, I think we will see a slump, not a dump. I think we'll see, it pull back, but by the end of the year, I expect it to be back over 30.
Over 30?
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know how far over 30, but so the question is it a deal? or not. BTC Golden Cross, maybe. Like, I need to see the charts. I'm not a charts guy at all. Maybe, Victor and Kankado can school us a little bit on some technical trading, but I'm more of a, value investing cannot be applied to crypto. We are still if we're early, that means we're also early in terms of value investing, but if I had to, I mean, I would be very much in the world of looking at crypto from the paradigm of a value investor. What are their cash flows? What are their volumes? What are the strength indicators? No, there's no, balance sheet to go off of, but how are they doing? And Victor says, "Check it out. Hit us with a link, bro. Well, like, we wanna see a link and see what you're looking at, man. Give us a screenshot." But I think it's gonna pull back, and I think it's gonna not skyrocket. I think it's gonna be a steady Eddie this year, and I think we'll see over 30. Even if we see a global recession, that might be the thing that influences the slump, but what we call I mean, they're calling this a recession, and we're deliberating. I can't tell. Gas is high, eggs are high, people don't have jobs, so people don't give a shit about jobs. So like this is a weird market. It's wibbly and weird. And I'll tell you, my Haitian friends aren't freaking out like they used to. So it's like, but stuff is tough there. So like I don't know
These
what
are the best
indicators.
indicators. These are the best indicators of ever. We've got unemployment, we've got gas, and then we got Haitians in Florida. This is what you bring to me, or just Haitians in
Haitians
Haiti?
in Haiti and Flufftopians, which I can't even find the collection right now, which means it's
Yeah,
probably a
it's
slow
such an
rug.
official collection. It's such a good indicator for the global economy. You can't even find it on open sea. You're
I'll tell you another
killing me.
indicator. No, let me tell you another indicator. I checked
Okay,
yesterday,
let's
and
do
for
it.
those who check NFTs, I checked OpenSea yesterday, and I got some palpitations. And my palpitations were this Trump NFT line is in the top 10 again. What is going on? Like, you gotta look out here. Okay, so we got Cointelegraph. I'll bring this up, or if you could bring it up from LinkedIn or whatever, we could check out the Golden Cross here from Victor and check that out. But here's another indicator. We talked about this less than a month ago, and Coinbase had hit an all-time low, right?
Coinbase stock.
Coinbase stock had hit an all-time low. It was below 34, and I was just sitting over coffee with my wife going, "Well, in principle, we are principled people when it comes to investing. In principle, you buy low and sell high, right? Yeah. This is at an all-time low, right? And we believe in Coinbase and cryptocurrencies and tokenization." And I just finished, by the way, the master class on cryptocurrency with CZ, and then I forget the gal's name who has been the CEO of Coinbase. And then Chris Dixon, who is the venture capitalist from A16Z, very intelligent character. Follow his Twitter. And I'm listening to these guys, and I'm like, okay, she's with Coinbase, and I'm hearing her philosophy. I'm just going to buy up buy up Coinbase. So I swept some Coinbase. It's at 71.
What'd you
I'm
get
more
at?
than
35?
33.
Yeah, it when it hit 33, I had a buy ready and I was about to, but I decided not to. I'm just gonna stick with Bitcoin. But I don't know.
Yeah,
Okay,
man.
Grant.
So,
Grant,
so
here's a
these are my
question.
indicators. Go.
I think that's a good indicator. Your Haitian indicator, I still want to dive deeper on because I'd love to understand that. And for all
Sac
my
passe,
yes, I
naboule.
passe,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So, would you rather have the year is no, the year is now. Would you rather have $1,000,000 in Bitcoin or $1,000,000 in Coinbase?
Coinbase.
Oh my god. Right now, you would take $1,000,000, and if I said
Yeah,
you can only put it into Bitcoin or Coinbase, why?
yeah.
Why?
Because it's at 71 in our world-class recession, air quotes. Oh, it's at 71. I had 1,000,000 at this. By the end of the year, do you think it could recover halfway to 200 where it was? Yeah, okay, let's say it goes to 100. I'd sell. I think that there's still so much upward motion in Coinbase myself. I will probably be proven wrong, but, I personally am convicted that if I had the option, I think Coinbase will see 125 before Bitcoin sees 30.
For sure.
And s
Okay, let me rephrase this so I get the real answer. So Grant, you was in the Satoshi roundtable. Yeah, Grant is
I
Satoshi.
wish how do we get the invite to the Satoshi roundtable? I that That event looked on fire. Like, have you seen photos of this, Jared?
No, I haven't. I haven't,
I mean,
which
everybody
is
was in it.
bad.
Everybody was in it.
Was it?
Yeah, it was nuts. Yeah, yeah, except Craig Wright.
Good God, Craig
This
Wright.
guy,
So
he's starting to piss me off. Go ahead.
let me put some more guardrails on that question. Would you buy $1,000,000 of Bitcoin or $1,000,000 of Coinbase today if you had to hold it till 2030?
Bitcoin. By 2030,
Oh,
Bitcoin. If I couldn't liquidate until 2030, yeah, yeah.
okay.
Victor, were
Okay,
you at
that's
the
good.
round you weren't at the round table, Victor, were you? You got some Illuminati juice there if you do. Let me know if you're pumping on all
Yeah, Victor's got
Illuminati cylinders.
that Puerto Rican Illuminati juice.
And then what you didn't ask me is if I could have 1,000,000 in real estate, what would I do? And it would be real estate, you know? You gave me
Over
some
Bitcoin.
yeah, hands down. Yeah,
And that's
because
just
a
because of the
million
cash flow?
well, and the leverage, the borrowing. I know that like in so this was very interesting, the master class, and for anyone watching, this is not a shill, I have no links to sell you, but go watch the master class on crypto. It's phenomenal because Paul Krugman is on there, and I was messaging you and Jay about some of these quotes, and Paul for those who don't know, Paul Krugman is, famous for being a critic. And he was famous for criticizing the internet when it first came out as an economist and said it would have no greater impact on the world business economics than the fax machine. And it was obviously devastatingly wrong. But he's been right about a lot of interesting things. And we do need critics in the space. We don't need a lot of them. And I would honestly say his position on this was loose at best. Um, so it felt kinda staged, but, um, he had a lot of valid points about the role, for example, of regulation, and he and CZ were in a debate, and they definitely, both agreed, like, we need regulation to come, not too soon, but it does need to come, and I was looking at that, and then right after that, I was thinking, there's paradigms of this that we hold sacred because it's our crypto identity, right? It's our crypto oh, yeah, big time. My flow is on fire right now, FYI. Victor's totally right about this flow blockchain, murdering it. My Dapper Labs, wallet is killing it, and flow is part of my dollar cost average right now as well. And Doodles, yeah, Victor, I'm in Doodles. I've got, a Genesis box that I'm waiting on for Doodles too, and I'm watching Gaia. For those who don't know, check out Gaia because, um, the Doodle swag is gonna launch all on Flow blockchain. Doodles will blow up Flow blockchain bigger than it is yet, and it's huge. Flow is huge. What were we gonna say there?
Well, yeah, sorry, I just wanna clarify that. I thought so Doodles is gonna switch from Ethereum to
Mm.
just Doodles 2 is gonna be on Flow.
Doodles 2
Okay,
is gonna
cool.
be on Flow because it's versatility, so there's something about the way that that blockchain is built that they had these duplicators or Genesis blocks that were unpacked on, Gaia, which is Flowchain's, wallet, and these things opened up and there was a bunch of swag, like, if you saw a doodle that had a really cool coat, it had all the memorabilia. You can buy these up and boom, boom, badang, these are on-chain PFPs, and so they are programmed programmatically, just like a character in a video game. You can then put on that swag, and now your doodle, which Doodles 2 will launch, I think like in March or the February Genesis blocks that I did purchase on um, OpenSea, which is on Ethereum or Matic or whatever it is, that will open up. I'll be able to purchase my doodle. It will cross chain over to Flow, and I can buy the socks or the shorts or whatever it is. And the IP coming out of that is nuts. So I'm bullish on Flow and Doodles in a big way. By the way, just look at the collection of collectibles and you'll see. Um, where do we leave off there before we saw
I don't know, Victor threw it out with the flow.
that?
I think
Real
you were
estate, real estate.
yes.
So,
Yes.
I was looking at this master class, and I was allowing myself to, nurture my inner critic, which, in crypto, when something is sacred and we're fanboys and fangirls and we've built our whole brand and our platform and our identity and the show, and our YouTube channels check out more than blockchain, check out Grant Sparks. I mean, we're talking about this stuff all the time. We built our identities around this. So like it has to succeed, right? Like in some unconscious way. So we ignore the inner critic. And Paul Krugman was big about this. And where else I had a parallel talking about real estate was there's this thing about debt that's like a no-no, like no debt if you follow Dave Ramsey and some of these people. And it's like, that's not good. One of my favorite real estate investors buys a lot of properties, no cash down. Um, and his name's Pace Moby, and he's Morby, and he's a really cool YouTube account. You got to follow this guy. And someone asked him, how much debt are you in? He didn't bat an eye. He said $233 million of debt. And the guy was like, doesn't that stress you out? He said, every millionaire you've ever seen interviewed has more debt than you can imagine. And it's not the bad thing you say it is. It's literally the currency of the United States. And like we talk about the fiat standard, I get it. We talk about fiat currency, I get it. If you are talking about fiat, you have placed yourself as the liquidity pool for the rich. The rich are operating on debt, which is the real value in our society, not the currency. Those holding currency are, I got my paycheck to paycheck and how much is in my bank account? You are literally the liquidity leverage pool for the rich who are operating on credit. And you got to manage this well. Obviously, this could literally, uh, literally turn your smile upside down. Tristan, debt is untaxable, though, in the famous words of Robert Kiyosaki. The right debt makes you untaxable. So you might be sitting on that mansion in Southern Texas with Tristan next to his mansion. This guy's rolling, right? Doing good stuff, Tristan. So let's say you bought, what is that town down there? McKean, something like this, Texas, where there's a lot of really good property to be had right now. You go buy that, and it's like, how do I have more debt on this than anything? And then it's like, well, how do you feed? How do you eat yourself? How do you have entertainments? Well, credit. What do you mean credit? So when you so I my point really with crypto is I think we need to check our assumptions. Is decentralization actually good? Really? Really?
This is a
It's
different conversation, though.
50-50.
Stay on the credit
Okay.
and the debt issue with crypto, because that's a whole different
So,
thing.
well, debt and crypto, all the my only parallel with debt and crypto is in debt to real estate, the parallel is decentralization to crypto. And
How so?
uh
How so?
In that we start to assume this is better. So what I mean with the assumptions on how we bear
Okay,
assumptions. So like
okay.
in real estate or in debt in general, we just assume debt is bad and just we shut it out of our head. And in crypto, we just assume decentralization is good and then we shut it out of our head. And then we move on about our day and make decisions with this lens, but we don't critique it. And I think we should really be critiquing, is decentralized the best? Well, in fact, the best service protocols out there, the best blockchains have a degree of centralization because they're focused on improving the service in a very linear way. And so it's like, ooh, to 100% decentralized. And I get the arguments, right? Like the fiat standard, like the argument is decentralized. I don't think people actually want to decentralize.
But wait. I don't think the argument in the fiat standard is to decentralize. The argument in the fiat standard or in just fiat in general is just stop freaking printing money. You just have to like not solve all your problems by printing money. That's the argument. It has nothing to really to do for me with decentralization.
Okay,
I think
I'd go with that.
maybe that's a better world than having it centralized. I don't know. I've kind of given up on the decentralized or centralized because I don't really think it matters if you're just talking about like the fiat, like fiat versus Bitcoin, for example.
Yeah.
Just because it's like just stop printing money, or even say we're only going to print 2% of every year. We're only going to inflate by 2%, and with that money,
Mhm.
the U.S. has to figure out their budget. Well, then I guarantee they're not spending $880 million, $880 billion on war or whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, when
But
you
my
have a
point so
finite yeah, go
my
ahead.
point about being critical and having critical thinking, my point about this is printing money the cause of inflation?
Well, for the Austrian economist in me and for anyone who's into Bitcoin Maxism, they would say yes. They would say that that is the cause. Not having something that is, once we went off the gold standard, that's what they would probably point to.
Once we went off the gold standard. I present for your consideration within the history of money, inflation has occurred when we were on fixed metal standards. And it wasn't by printing more money. It was sometimes inflation is just the raising of prices that's a self-feeding organism. Someone's like, "Oh, shoot, I could get more profit over here at the gas station or at the noodle shop. I could just get more profit by incrementally increasing my price over the coming years." And then the guy that provides eggs and flour for the noodles, like, "I just had noodles over at Lynn's Noodle House." And it was like, "They're charging this. I should be charging a little bit more for the resources they use for me." Inflation is just what humans do. And
See,
and
this is where the Austrian economist would say that's like not that doesn't have to be the way. Like that doesn't that's our like working assumption that
interesting.
like it's this world of this growth mindset, which I've tried to describe and I'll probably fail. And so if you're in
Yeah.
the comments, please just rag on me. But it's like you don't need more of like the unit. The unit just becomes more valuable, right? Like having one Bitcoin in 2030
Yeah.
is as valuable as having like 100 Bitcoins today. So you don't
Yeah.
need more of the unit becomes more valuable. And that's just a
Yeah.
different way of thinking. And
I need to see what he's talking about here. Mike Maloney, Hidden Secrets of Money playlist. I'm gonna go check this out, Victor. I commit to doing it. I'll check it out and maybe do my own YouTube video on it. Jared, maybe you and I can cover this on our other show, Friday
for sure.
Finances. We'll take a look at that. So you don't know this about me. I was about to enroll in the von Mises Institute of Austrian Economics, and I had a philosophical conversation because I have a very strong libertarian background. I stopped cold turkey by decision around
Being
this ti
libertarian?
yeah, around this conversation of I realized I asked them about this idea of it doesn't have to be that way. This moreness that happens with humans, more. We need more increment. Things could just become more valuable. For example, John Galt, the uh, Atlas Shrugged book. Like, I'm a big fan of this book, which is like the Bible for a lot of libertarian or von Mises or Austrian economists. And I was looking at the libertarian version, obviously, of Austrian economics. There's like other areas of this. But I kept asking, like, that's great, but like, when in history has that shown to be a way that humans gravitate to? So there's this thing in design, for example, if you're creating a sidewalk at an intersection and you put the sidewalk right up to the corner, but eventually the local neighborhood people start cutting the corner and there's this curve. And eventually people put up fences and eventually they put up brick walls so that people go to the end of the corner and turn left instead of cutting through this yard. Well, biotecture is the idea of why did we do that? Why didn't we just pave the curved section for the neighborhood? Because it's a human nature to do this. And I started realizing for my investments, for my personal growth, for my personal development, for my businesses, for my crypto, why not go with what is human nature? And and so I have a big propensity. So when I was talking to the Austrian economics enrollment person, we were getting to this debate, and it was very wonderful. It was a good dialogue. But I said, I hear you. It doesn't have to be that way. But what proof is it if I spent my life investing and trying to perpetuate this idea that it could ever actually happen? What evidence is there that this is actually that this is what humans want? Humans writ large. And their response is, "There's not, it's an idealistic thing." And I am very much an optimist and an idealist to a point, not at the point of sacrificing utility for my goals. And so I had goals and I was like, "You know what? The thing about Austrian economics," my summary is, the thing about Austrian economics is it's so idealistic that I am not yet convinced it could be implemented in reality. So why would I espouse it? And it's the same and the parallel is for me, this is just my little world. For me, I had a similar experience when it came to decentralization. Everyone wants decentralization until the man rugs them, and then they want justice. And to get justice, you have to have a degree of centralization. Like, if you follow the logic blocks, I want justice. To get justice, I will therefore need some form of centralization. And I'm like,
So
"Dang." Go ahead, go ahead.
so the way that you talk about humanity is really interesting because,
Mhm,
like, there have been many civilizations
mhm.
that were just living, and they didn't need more. They could just live. And this was hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Now, I think
Sure.
there's still some tribes in the Amazon that kinda do their own thing,
Yeah,
and they're not, like, littering their neighborhoods with this crap, right? And
yeah,
so, I think the way that we even talk about humans now is only within the framework of, like, current modern day capitalism, which maybe not for you and myself, but maybe some days it is. It seems like there's only a finite amount, and so we have to kill each other to get what we want, and I just don't believe in that world, especially not in a
interesting.
fiat world where they're printing money all the time, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Well, and I
you and
do
I
agree that something's broken, and I'm not all about riding something broken because the ideal seems challenging, like this ideal of Austrian
because
economics.
that's what it sounded like, because that's what it sounded
No,
like, and
no.
that's where I think and but please talk more on that, but that's what it
Yeah,
sounds like. You're like, "Well, it's too idealistic, how could I possibly jump into it?" How could I possibly even learn about it from an economic framework that is good to understand, so when I see where it could be implemented, i.e.
yeah.
Bitcoin or hard money or sound money, then that would
Sound
be a
money.
good
Yeah.
thing. One of the things that I gravitate to, uh, Bitcoin so strongly was in Saifedean's book, Bitcoin
Mhm.
Standard, where he's like, if you stop printing
Yeah,
fiat money,
yeah,
you can't have wars. He's like, you can have wars, but it's going to be a lot more difficult when there's a finite amount of economic energy that a country has. And they're like, well, we have education, we have healthcare, or we could go across the world and go kill people we don't know.
yeah.
Good luck trying to get that third one past the first two, education and healthcare. Good luck. And in the United States, though, we do. That's what we do. It's an empire.
Yeah.
And empires print money, and empires print money until they basically destroy themselves.
So
And the
you raise
US
a great
is
point about
right around
empires.
here. Yeah.
The empire cycles. So there's a
Yeah.
great book called The Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire. And it was written, gosh, I want to say in the like 17 or 1800s.
Wow.
And it was obviously from a Judeo Christian paradigm of the rise and fall of empires. And it focused on the Roman Empire. It's phenomenal. But this has been going on. Read anything about empire building. And around this time that I did have the luxury of diving deep down the rabbit hole of Austrian economics and having an informed, nuanced disagreement with it. If you don't have that, you should get into Austrian economics. You should get into the Bitcoin standard. You should get into crypto and you should wave the decentralization flag until you hit its limits. And it's only at that point that I came off of it. So I want to make sure that yes, if you're a Ruben, you're just now being exposed to money, you're watching the show, you're watching any one of our shows, and you're like, I shouldn't get involved in this. No, hear me on this. Go down the rabbit hole. I'm talking on the other side of that rabbit hole. Let's talk about nuance and expectation of outcome. And so for me, I don't believe we should keep printing money. I don't believe it's a good system. Um, but as I fight for a system to work, for example, I am a big believer in crypto, because of the I think we use these terms. It was decentralization versus redistribution. And what I see with cryptocurrency is there's a redistribution of power back to the holders. And so if there's a season of empire building where this empire is highly centralized and this empire is just controlling all the money and all the interest rates, I cannot wait for that season to end. But I do believe that the cyclical nature of the rise and fall of empires, I do believe this is human nature. We look back, say, for example, the indigenous tribes in Florida, or we look back to the Meso-Mayan Empire, they all believed in more. They had no problem waging what they knew as total world war, annihilating civilizations. Like for them, especially throughout Central America, they had no problem annihilating other tribes for resources. This was not limited to the fact that we're on a currency system or a capital system. So when I see that, I think, well, we can't look in the past with rose colored glasses. It was brutal. And if we know that some of this is human nature, I then long for the cycles. And once we can identify the cycle like we are in this empire cycle right now with the United States, I then look for the hope. Where's the hope? The hope is in redistribution of power. Boom. Enter crypto and Bitcoin. And the window of time that we have what appears and feels like decentralization, I'm down. Let's wave that flag, let's pump that. But behind closed doors, you and I both know at some point we gotta get back to like a little bit of this is what the term we use. We said instead of decentralization, we were using the term in this one dialogue, re-centralization. We were using that term of
Yes.
re-centralizing power.
Yes, re-centralizing, but doing it in a more equitable manner. And
Mhm.
I also
Yes.
think that maybe decentralization is so hard for you to maybe latch onto and wave the flag just because we do live in such a centralized world.
Hmm.
Is that at all play into it? I mean, it's just for
Mm.
example, I'm trying to think
Oh.
of like a good real world example, but it's like even okay, it's the 1980s.
Mhm.
And I tell you that there's gonna exist this thing in the future in the next,
Mhm.
like, 15 years
Mhm.
that I'm really looking into, and I find to be really fascinating. And
Mhm.
on this thing, I'm gonna be able to talk to anyone on the planet. I'm gonna be able to engage with almost anyone on the planet.
Mhm.
And I don't need to have their cell phone number. I'm just gonna be able to find them and then talk to them. And I'm gonna be
Mhm.
able to probably send them a message, a digital message.
Mhm.
You, in the '80s, would say that's ridiculous. I can't even
No.
understand that world.
No, that's not me. That's not where I'm coming from for this.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, that's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah.
I think because we're in such a centralized world, it's so hard for you to understand decentralization, but I
Mm-mm.
actually think that there's a future where there is a decentralized world. Now, I don't know how we get there. I couldn't give you steps 1 through 4, 5, 6, but from everything that I see with crypto and everything I see with, like, the global south or the developing world or emerging markets, however you wanna say this, people used to say the third world. The United States, China, and Russia, their time as like power is coming
Mhm.
close to an end. And I just think the rest of the world plays nicer and the rest of the world understands the idea of community a lot better,
Yes,
and
I buy
understands
that.
the idea of sharing resources a lot better. Even if
Oh,
you
yeah.
just look at Europe, Europe, countries that have different freaking languages, have different histories, they can get together better than many states in the United States of America.
Yeah,
The rest
totally.
of the world, I just think, has a lot better idea about, like, how to probably re-centralize, and you and I come from the United States, which is highly centralized, and so I think
Mhm.
it may be kind of tough. That's all.
I I I don't struggle to understand decentralization. I I I I struggle to understand how the reason I like the term re-centralization
Mhm.
is humans are group forming organisms. And if you took 10 of us and you took us to Survivor Island and you said, like, if you watch a single season of Survivor, you know this is true.
Oh, yeah.
You put them on the island and everyone knows going in, there can be only one winner. Only one winner. And then you watch them foolishly play the politics games and they form groups. And you're like, "Wait, don't you know better?" And they're like, "Totally, but we form groups. This is literally what we do." And so all that all that you have, the only problem with the fiat, the problem of printing money in this empire is that it's just gone unchecked for too long. It needs to redistribute. And when you think about pure decentralization, for example, what is the political equivalent of decentralization? The governance equivalent.
Socialism?
Now that would be interesting, but socialism implies, remember what socialism means is that means who owns the capital and the group owns the capital. Decentralization in general is anarcho-capitalist. It's like pure it's like pure Noam Chomsky, right? Anarcho-capitalism.
Okay, okay, so like Mad Max, right? Where it's just like everyone owns their stuff and that's it. Like,
Well, but the hope is that with the tech keeps us into a trustless bond
keeps
where
us
we
at bay. Okay.
keeps us at bay where we don't devolve into Mad Max. We have all of the luxuries of capitalism, but no overlords. But what happens when you truly piss me off and I need a police force, a true law enforcement? Well, it's smart contracts. Listen, we're talking about jetpacks, and I was promised jetpacks in 1980. And the reason I'm pissed today is
Smart
not that I didn't
contracts.
it's not that I didn't believe in jetpacks. The reason I'm pissed is because I did believe I would have a jetpack. And so what I don't wanna do is look at decentralization and say, "Hey, smart contracts will govern us, and Jarrett will have to pay Grant." Pragmatically, boots on the ground, that technology does not exist yet, and if we're decentralized and there's no central, even if it's just a centralized vision casting, someone has to cast that vision.
This
Does that make
argument
sense?
right here no, this makes perfect sense. This argument right here is an argument that one of the biggest Bitcoin maxis that I know in real life makes all the time about why Web3 is really nothing and why NFTs are really nothing, and just
I don't
why
buy
the
that.
only thing in blockchain that's actually real is Bitcoin. Because he says that exact thing. He says, "Okay, well, Grant, sell me your house as an NFT.
Or no.
Great.
Yeah.
You sent me $200,000 and I send you the deed to the house.
Yeah.
You come to the house and I'm standing there and you're like, all right, it's my house. I'm like, what do you mean? You
Uh-huh.
know, just because the smart contract said it is like, okay, just because it's online until
That's
it
right.
is tapped into that more centralized network, which is the local deed registration or the local sheriff's office or the local, the MLS or whatever we would need to be for real estate in whatever county, in whatever state. I completely agree. I
Yeah.
completely agree. But I'm also saying that's the world we live in now. I don't think it's
Yes.
gonna be smart contracts. I don't know what's gonna happen when we all have freaking neural links in 30 years. And when Jared doesn't pay Grant, Jared gets a little shock, right? Jared Jared can't watch Netflix because his eyes are closed for 5 days, okay? Like, I'm not exactly sure what's gonna happen, but I do think there is a world where centralization happens, but I also think, and this is dark, and I've never said this publicly, I don't think we get to pure decentralization or re-centralizing until we go through some very hard times as
I
humans.
agree. I agree.
Throughout humanity, we only make big changes after essentially world wars or the plague or the bubonic plague. Then we all kind of say, okay, we need to put some guardrails on this because we can't be left to our own devices. Now, the future of the guardrails will be smart contracts, right? Or something like that, some kind of a mechanism that will live digitally to make sure that we're all like paying attention. And now I sound like a Black Mirror episode, but I do think that the only time humans really make huge change um, is when something
Yeah.
tragic really happens. I mean, that's not
Well,
always the time, but like that when in a collective, you know?
yeah, so, like and think about this, like, where does distrust come from? Well, if you're in a crypto maxi world, not even Bitcoin maxi, if you're in a crypto maxi world, and they're talking about a trustless system driven by smart contracts, the assumption is that, well, we're fixing the problems of trust, because the problems of trust are a systemic issue. The problems of trust are a human issue. And you don't fix that necessarily, at least not immediately, with a system. What I mean is this. Let's say let's just assume, like I assumed in the 80s that I would have jetpacks by the 2024s, 2023s. Let's just assume by 2030, your Bitcoin has gone to 1 million. Praise hallelujah. And smart contracts now, nearly every transaction is governed by microtransactions and or smart contracts that can be enforced on the blockchain. So that would be phenomenal, right? So in our last show, we were talking about the price of Bitcoin, and someone floated the idea it's being artificially propped up. And we're like, "Wait a
I like how
minute."
you say someone. I like how you say someone. You know
Someone said
exactly who it was. Someone
eh,
who's not on the show with us today because he's probably working too much at his Web 2 job.
and so where does that the system is decentralized. We believe in it. Maybe Bitcoin itself isn't the perfect protocol. Maybe there's more perfect protocols because right now we know that someone can acquire a ton of Bitcoin or in Ethereum, someone could acquire most of the nodes and effectively be in control. And in this trustless system with smart contracts now can simply be ruled, if you will, by node control. Well, Bitcoin's different. It doesn't have node control. No, but you can still prop up the price and market manipulate just like any other economics. Grant, what's your beef, man? Not my beef. It's natural to distrust, no matter how much better the system is. And that's all I'm getting at about decentralization. We might even build the perfect decentralized network. And as soon as we do, someone's going to go, yeah, what about the lizard people in the Illuminati? And we're going to have to then deal with,
I mean,
yo, okay.
for many people, for Maxis, the Bitcoin network is kind of a perfect network. Like it's been around a long time. Everyone's taken pot shots at it. A
Yeah.
lot of people have taken pot shots and then come to the other side and now own it and now speak about it on
Yeah.
MSNBC, and it's
No one
not
in particular.
yeah, it's not decentralized as I think it's sold to be, but I
Sure.
think it is it's the only digital asset that is a true commodity. And I know that there's the Howey test to decide what a commodity is and what it isn't. I just
Mhm.
use my test, which is there a CEO? Okay. And if there isn't, that's a commodity. So uh Victor has a question here. Maybe we should end with this. He said, do you think the Fed print fake money and buy BTC?
Hang
Wow.
tight, hang tight. We will
Wow.
answer that, but let's acknowledge Victor's other question or statement, and I do wanna validate this in a big way. What is important about decentralization is that you have full control. I agree with that idea, and I long for that myself. If you don't do your homework and search info in where you invest, you lose your money. It's your responsibility. And this is where I did believe very strongly in Austrian economics is the responsibility of the citizen. And I govern, and let me be very clear to you and the public. I govern myself from an Austrian economics perspective. Educate on everything, learn everything. What I don't assume is that everyone else will apply that amount of responsibility. If you want someone to manage your account and make money from your money and use it without you, get yield, restrict what you can transfer or not and have full control, then go centralized. That's he's making my very point. I believe Victor is a diamond in the rough. I believe crypto boys and girls are visionaries who are the exceptions that prove the rule.
Hmm.
And that is all I mean. I love being in this community because we are amongst people who have a degree of idealism and are putting their code where their mouth is. I love that. But I believe we will always, always, always be fighting the lazy minded. And so we will always be fighting a degree. And maybe we could have our druthers. Maybe we'd have our cake and eat it too. And by that, maybe we could create our own economy that is a separate strata of society. We are the citizens of our own virtual decentralized nation. I would support that. And that is the premise, just to be fair to everyone, because I've been the hater on today's show. That was the original OG premise of State of the Spark, my company. It was a non-location nation built on its own strata of society of people living out their own values, not in Galt's Gulch hidden in Denver, Colorado somewhere, but literally on the technosphere. That is my vision back in 2008 when I found Bitcoin. So that is kind of where I do align. I just want us to be realistic about the forces we will always come against, if that makes any sense. To your question here, oh, go ahead, unless you had feedback to your question about Victor's next statement.
No, I just thought we should end on Victor's. Do you think the Fed is printing fake money and buying
Whew,
Bitcoin? I have no idea, but that would be the greatest thing ever if it ever came out, where they basically inflated away the
the
dollar
Panama
and
Papers.
destroyed and destroyed a lot of other currencies that are pegged to it, and then just accumulated, I don't know, like 1,000,000 Bitcoin, and then just said, "Yeah, we're gonna do the Bitcoin standard, and only those who have been stacking sats, like, can do anything." So I think that's a perfect way to end this show.
That is good. Let's just say that that's what's been going on because it feels like something is afoot. So, Victor, good call out. Do you think the Fed's printing? Someone, Janet Yellen is sitting on fat stacks, and she's going to be our Bitcoin
Janet
overlord. Yes,
Yellen, yeah, she has, like, a ledger around her neck, you just can't see it, you know?
under that coat she always
Yeah, she's got a
wears.
cold card underneath her pillowcase.
So quick shout outs. I'll go first and then you could go and wrap. Shout out to Bullish on Flow, have the best of both worlds. I do agree with that. Shout out to Victor and everyone paying attention. Shout out to Jay, who is just swamped up to his eyeballs. Shout out to our own, these are very privileged conversations we're having. And we feel like we're on the fringe quite often, but we're on the fringe because we've been gifted so much in our life. So shout out to those who have done so much to actually put people like us, people like Victor, people like Ken Cato, in the position to actually have these healthy debates. So those are my shout outs, bro.
I don't really have a shout out today. I was gonna shout
Okay.
out Jay, but, I wanna shout out everyone who joined us, and we will see you next Tuesday at 3:30, here on Not Crypto Bros.
Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day. And make sure you follow Jarrett at More Than Blockchain. Follow me at Grant Sparks. We'll talk to y'all soon. Take care.